So I've been asked about supplements a lot lately, especially now that I'm ramping up my training, and asking if I have ever used supplements, and if I did, how I use them to help make me a better archer and overall improve my, overall health and wellness using supplements. And in this video, I'm going to do my best to explain to you how I've used supplements over the years to deal with the stresses of training and travel and competing to help shoot higher scores and ultimately become a better archer. So this video, I'm going to do my best to make it as condensed as possible. I actually already recorded this once and the length of it was extremely long. So I'm going to keep story time to a minimum and give you as much information as I possibly can about supplements here. Now, I must caveat this entire video with, first and foremost, I am not a doctor and I am not making recommendations to take any of these things. I am just sharing my experience and how they have benefited me in the past. And if you are interested in any of these supplements that I do have here, I will have links in the description below for you to look at and see if you'd like some more information on them in case you wanted to check them out. The next biggest, most important thing to talk about is you need to decide whether or not you are competing at a level that is subjecting you or may be subjecting you to drug testing at some point in time. If you are, I would absolutely start, before taking any supplements ever, is to do as much research as possible. There are some really good resources out there that I've used in the past that I'll link in the description below. And one of those is USADA, United States Anti-Doping Agency, and they have a supplement 411 informational sheet on things that are safe as well as things that definitely should be avoided, how contamination happens, and ultimately how to protect yourself if you are subject at all to drug testing. Now, throughout my entire career, I took supplements and I used them to my benefit. I took them when I was in the out-of-competition testing pool as well as the in-competition testing pool, and I used them the entire time that I trained at the Olympic Training Center in California, the whole time I was on the national team, and even during the Olympic Games. I used supplements the entire time, and not once did I ever have a positive test or even a questionable test as to my cleanliness in the actual sport. So I really did my job to make sure that everything I put into my body, I was 100% responsible for, just like you must as well if you choose to use supplements. Now, this is not even specific to just supplements. This is anything and everything that you put into your body, you are 100% responsible for, and I was as well. So anything that I ate, anything that I ingested, anything at all that I used to help, aid in recovery or to, just have a better, happier life, I had to be responsible for and make sure for a fact what I was putting in my body was clean, and you must as well. So with that all being out of the way, I'm gonna break this down into a couple different categories and groups for you. First, I'm gonna share a bit of my experience using them and why I even started using them in the first place. And then also I'm going to share with you what I have taken supplements for and break it down into categories of inflammation, recovery, and performance, and have different supplements in there that I have used. Now, none of these supplement companies I am endorsed by or am otherwise recommending specifically. I don't have any affiliation with any of these companies. I just genuinely use these products, and I will have links for everything in the description below, like I've already said. So one of the main things to note about supplements and how they are different than other things out there is if you look on the label and you look here where it says supplement or supplemental facts, depending on the bottle you're holding, when it says supplement facts and not nutritional facts, what's on the label and ingredients are not necessarily what is actually in the bottle. There might be some omission and there might be stuff that's added in there that is not on the actual bottle. And that's where positive tests come through and tainted supplements affect your drug testing results. So one of the dead giveaways to make sure that you don't have a tainted supplement outside of the resource that I just gave you is to make sure that anything you are taking has this label here. That's an NSF certification. Basically, it's third-party lab testing to make sure that what's in this bottle is only in this bottle. There's no extra stuff in there that you could potentially test false positive for. That makes it really easy, and a lot of stuff is now NSF certified that is out there. It does cost a lot of money for the company. They have to send in a lot of testing samples and pay for that certification. So many companies don't have it, and they are safe. But if you are subject to drug testing, I would stick to NSF certified products, just as a foolproof method. Some of the benefits that I have seen in the past and the reasons that I actually used supplements in the past was because I, for whatever reason, felt like I had such a disadvantage when it came to comparing myself to my competitors, my teammates, and my overall, training partners that were with me at the Olympic Training Center when I was really starting to develop into the sport. They could shoot more arrows than I could, train harder than I could, and get back at it the next day like nothing even happened. And I was in debilitating pain and inflammation and in agony all the time until I finally went into a health food store and talked to them about what was going on, and they said, oh yeah, we've got some stuff for that. And since I started down that route, I have never stopped since, because it has genuinely made such a difference in my life. Now, something to note is that it did take quite a bit of time for me to start to notice a difference, about 2 weeks, give or take. But when I really noticed the difference was when I forgot to take the supplements. For instance, I moved to a different place and they got moved from the counter to inside of a cabinet, and I forgot to take them. And after about 7 to 10 days, I'd wake up and be like, man, am I hurting? What's going on? And then after a few days, I'd realize I forgot to take my supplements. And that's when I really noticed the difference, is when I stopped taking them and not necessarily saw a huge benefit while I was actively taking them. But, I did notice the benefit when I stopped. So I'll start to break it down into some categories for you and show you some things that I've used it for in the past. And I'm going to start with inflammation. So inflammation, I dealt with joint inflammation, muscle inflammation, overall muscle soreness and tightness, fascial tightness, all sorts of things that really just limited my ability and range of motion and limited muscle recovery because of that. And what I found to really absolutely help was omega-3, specifically from fish oil. Omega-3s were huge in benefits for me. The reason I say absolutely must be fish oil is because, yes, flaxseed oil does have omega-3s, and in fact it's much higher weight for weight, pound for pound. You get a lot more of the omega-3s from flaxseed oil. One time I switched to that and I started hurting like I had not been taking things. Talked to a dietitian. They said, oh yeah, that whole flaxseed fad is just that, it's a fad, and your body in fact cannot even absorb the omega-3s from the flax seeds or the flaxseed oil because it's too complex of a molecule and your body just passes it right through. I'm like, okay, well, glad that I know that now, and I went back to fish oil and everything felt better. So again, this one is from Dr. Tobias. I actually found it is NSF certified. I found it on Amazon on sale, and the reason that I still continue to use this, even though it's more expensive, and I'm not subject to drug testing, but I still am taking this NSF certified brand, is because if you look on this ingredients list here and you look right there, it says enteric coated. Enteric coated is very important for this stuff because if you've ever taken omega-3s and you don't like fish burps as much as I don't, then you're going to want enteric coating on them. What that does is it prevents the capsule from opening until it gets into your small intestine, and therefore you don't have that fish revenge that goes on if you were not to have that coating. So absolutely, I will not take any omega-3 fish supplement that does not have enteric coating, and I will never take flaxseed oil as a replacement to this ever again. The next thing that I take for inflammation, which is a huge one for me, especially in joint pain, is turmeric. This is a turmeric complex that has a whole lot more than just turmeric in it. You can see that it has ginger as well as black pepper as well. Turmeric and ginger are both naturally anti-inflammatory. They're a spicy root. And then the black pepper extract actually acts as a carrier to deliver more of the anti-inflammatory molecules to the important places, and that black pepper just really helps drive it into the right place. You'll notice as I continue to move forward, a lot of these things have carriers in them that are very important to actual delivery to where the actual pain and ailment is, so it's important to know those kind of little things that I've learned over the years. As you can see, this is an Amazon Elements brand, no certifications, no nothing on it, but when I am taking something that is not NSF certified, I at least will make sure that they do some sort of third-party lab testing to make sure there's no heavy metals or anything unnecessary in the product that isn't good for you. This one has some extract specifically of curcuminoids that are naturally occurring in turmeric root. So there are other things like curcumin that are just basically concentrated turmeric that is also a very good anti-inflammatory. I've used that in the past too, but I found that this is just fine. Specifically not using just dietary or food-based turmeric because this is isolated to be a bit more potent and help with overall inflammation more, and it made a huge difference and the way that my body felt every single day. Even now, when I'm doing this shooting and this training and practicing, I get pretty sore, and this makes just the biggest difference in the world for overall body pains and muscle and joint stiffness. It makes a huge difference, and again, I take it every single day, just like everything else I'm going to show here I do. So now I'm going to get into talking about some things that I take for recovery, specifically for muscle recovery after a heavy training day, a day of lifting, or doing SPTs, things like that. I always absolutely take protein powder, and I like to go with mammal-based protein powder. I find that plant-based protein powder I don't absorb as good, and I don't feel like I get as much of a benefit of recovery. This is just an unflavored brand that, again, I got on Amazon, but why I really like the animal-based proteins, specifically from beef, is because if you look down here, you'll see a whole lot of amino acids, and amino acids in conjunction with protein do a whole lot for muscle recovery, and really just overall makes me feel better the next day, and I'm fresher and ready to go. And I overall just feel like I'm not punishing myself nearly as much despite having a heavy training day the day previous or 2 days previous. And this particular one is grass-fed. I just like grass-fed protein. The way that it feels in my body is much better than the corn-fed protein. And like I said, it's just worked for me so well in the past. I take this every time I shoot a heavy amount of arrows, or every day I am lifting. I'll do this, or even after SPT. And I'll do this in conjunction with a few other things immediately post-workout within 30 minutes. If I miss that window, I find that my recovery rate is nowhere near as quick and nowhere near as thorough, and it's scientifically proven that you have a very narrow window post-workout to really get the right things to the muscles to repair them without them being destroyed from the actual workload and not being able to repair later on. It really is important to make sure you feed your muscles properly, and something that I always fed it with was some sort of protein powder supplement. Now, I tried to eat as clean and as diverse of a diet as possible, but I couldn't possibly get the amount of nutrients and minerals and things like that that I'm getting from these supplements into my food, because I just couldn't eat enough. It's one of those things that was very difficult to get that kind of food load in my system, and this just makes sure that every day I was good to go. When I was traveling, when I was competing, you don't always have sources of good protein and quality fats and things like that. So every day, like I said, I just took it because overall I felt so much better. Now, in conjunction with that protein powder, when I'm making a post-workout recovery drink, I'll do that. I'll do a bit of dark cocoa powder, because that one's unflavored. And then I add a heaping spoonful of simple sugar, because that helps replace the glycogen in my muscles. That delivers some important needed amino acids as well as proteins to the muscles to make sure they healed. But then another thing I like to add that really helps me out in many different ways, and I'll share with you how, is collagen. Specifically these collagen peptides, which are in powder form, just like a protein powder. It makes such a big difference for me as far as muscle recovery and as well as skin recovery, that I take it pretty much every time I make that post-workout drink, just because it's nice to have. Now, this again has tons of amino acids. It also has lots of certifications here. You'll see that it's not NSF certified, but they do have paleo and gluten-free and keto and all that stuff, non-GMO, all that stuff in here. It's another good product that I like to use. Some other benefit, though, other than just muscle recovery, that really helped me was anytime I had a cut, anytime I had a blister, anytime I had some sort of skin issue, especially on my 3 fingers where I hold the string, or on the finger sling area or something like that. Anytime I had an issue, I would up my intake of collagen specifically. I got the idea from a teammate of mine, Jacob Wookie. Makes a massive difference in the speed of recovery when you cut your finger when you shouldn't and where you shouldn't. And overall, I would get back to shooting in less than half the time. When I would take about 20 grams a day, 10 in the morning, 10 at night, it'd speed up skin recovery so much faster, and it made an overall big difference. Another thing that I've used collagen for is in the 20 to 30 gram a day dosage, it starts to actually help with joint support as well, especially the the cushioning layers like cartilage and things like that. It really helps with the health of that. And after a couple weeks of taking 20 to 30 grams, I would go back down to 10 for maintenance, and overall feel much healthier as well. So collagen was an absolute weapon for me when it came to skin recovery, skin growth, callus buildup, things like that. Super, super beneficial. I would struggle with sustaining my energy throughout the day. I feel like I'd really crash towards the end of the day and just run out of steam, basically. And one thing that made a huge difference in my life was taking vitamin B supplements. This one here is just a B12 that's a sublingual. It dissolves under your tongue. It works really well for me, but I do generally like to take a vitamin B complex that has many more than just vitamin B12. Overall, vitamin B just gave me more sustained energy levels throughout the day. It made a big difference for me, and it's something that I still continue to take every day because I've got a lot of things going on and I'm doing a lot of stuff constantly, and you know, I just need as much natural support and help as I can get without getting into the caffeines, because as we know, caffeine and archery may not mix as well as we'd like it to. Now, these other two things are within the energy category, but also in overall immune system health that I find to be extremely important for me, especially while I was traveling. And it's actually more relative now than ever with COVID and everything else going on. I take vitamin C daily, and you know, it's Amazon Elements just because it's super cheap and I can get it quickly, and it's just what I prefer to get. Vitamin C, again, water soluble, you'll pee the excess out, but it's really beneficial for overall immune system function, and I did see a benefit with some energy levels as well. And the same thing goes for this next one, vitamin D. Vitamin D, super important, extremely important, especially now with COVID. You know, I've read a whole lot of stuff about people with vitamin D deficiencies and COVID adverse effects. And you know, I'm lucky, I'm in Florida, I get it from the sun, but I still take this daily just in case. And you'll see it also has vitamin K in it. That also acts as a carrier that delivers the vitamin D to where it needs to go. Super important, just like it was with the turmeric. And another thing that I would also take for that immune system function was zinc daily as well. I find that, again, to be just super helpful when I was traveling the way that I was. Over 180 days a year, I would be traveling and going to all sorts of places in airplanes and just sometimes just unsanitary conditions. And I needed to make sure I'd stay as healthy as I possibly could without getting as sick. And because when you get sick, it really affects your ability to train and your ability to compete. And now one of the last things that I do take daily, especially in Florida, sweating the amounts that I do, and that is some sort of electrolyte recovery kind of drink. I take it all the time. I actually have some mixed in water and I drink it daily because with the amount that I sweat here in Florida, I lose so much in the way of key nutrients as well as some basic salts in my system, and I overall feel sluggish and really slow reaction time and brain fog and all sorts of issues. And you know, because I typically don't salt my foods, and this just makes such a big difference. You'll also notice that this one does not have any sort of sugars in it. It does have a little bit of stevia down here in the ingredients list, because I don't like the sugary based electrolyte drinks like a Powerade or a Gatorade, because they typically have way too much glucose in that, or simple sugars, and or even worse, high fructose corn syrup. And it spikes your insulin level when you take those. And when that happens, your energy levels just become very unstable. And then you're dealing with these peaks and valleys when you're trying to be as consistent and high performing as possible, you know, like archery requires. And I would just strictly avoid sugary and high carb based electrolyte drinks, because this one just really replaces the nutrients that are super important and needed for proper body function and proper brain function. And you know, you get it different flavors and things like that, obviously, because plain old water can get boring after a while. Especially in Florida here, I'm drinking, you know, upwards of a gallon a day sometimes, and it can just get very, very boring. And just to prove a fact, this is coconut oil, this is a supplement. Look at the difference in the labels and you'll see nutritional facts, supplement facts. What's on this label, it may not actually be in here, or there may be extra stuff in here, whereas what's on this label is what's in here and only what's in here and nothing extra. So you can see that easy dead giveaway. Supplement facts, nutritional facts. Always, always, always be careful, be cautious, because you have to be 100% responsible for what gets put into your body.